found a place before anyone else was, before
Having to look
the
for it.
huge scramble, yeah.
And then, I mean, but still the expense of having to do that. And then the expense of trying to bring your, that's covered?
Totally covered,
Well, that's good.
yeah.
That's good.
I haven't, I paid
I get kind of bored
$1,000
with all that stuff about
refundable
planning
deposit
and
for my rental,
all that
and I paid
permitting
nothing
and all
for my
that.
rental
Right.
expense. It's all covered, going straight from the insurance company to my landlord. And
Oh, nice.
I think I got away really cheap. So I put out there that I
We're
was
just sitting
willing to
wherever, just
pay
we don't have our.
up to $2,000 a month.
I just sat here, we sat here, this is where we sat last night.
He's charging $1,500 including utilities,
Goodness.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Goodness gracious.
Oh,
But,
this is awesome.
well, that's pretty
You know what they
amazing.
do, the ship money is they take the ship money and they put it in a disaster relief
I don't know.
and then they stop DPA usually or slow it down a little bit and they take all that money and put it in disaster.
But I've
so
had
people
a lot of other things on my mind.
that have damage to the house because of the hurricane can apply for it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I had a fire
My
before all the
daughter had
hurricanes.
a tree fall on her
Yeah.
house. So what the program does, she has
Oh,
home
so in the
insurance.
fire, I lost everything in the fire.
And you have to be turned down by FEMA.
And
which
then,
you
yes, I
was.
got,
And then
well, my
the
garage got flooded
program
because my house
picks
is on
up
stilts.
the deductible.
So my garage got flooded and then Milton didn't do it.
That's really nice, yeah. I'm sorry.
Because it can get quite expensive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So this has been like
So
one of the
I
last
called
things.
Terry and she said that they were working on the application. She just gave it to me.
Oh, nice.
It's awesome.
Good morning.
Good morning. I've got a sinus thing going on. So
You know, as I
I'm
was
like
driving,
not.
as I was driving here, I swallowed and I've been coughing since I like started driving.
Yeah, I've had a whole sore throat.
Six. How many do we need for a quorum?
5, we have 4.
Okay.
Hi. Hey. Did they have what? Not a CD, they have a CRA facility. No, they don't.
Nice to have the expert here, huh? So what's the scoop, Dylan?
City clerk is headed over here.
What time did you get here? You're loud, we won't charge you extra.
Just pay for it, so.
Wake up on a Monday morning.
Okay, I am ready.
Today's meeting of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee is called to order on this day, October 28th. Welcome, everyone. Agendas of today's meeting are at the entrance to the meeting room. Please remember to turn off your cell phones. To ensure a complete record of the committee's actions, we ask that each individual wishing to speak clearly state your name, spell your last name for the clerk. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. At this time, I would like to ask the board members to introduce themselves and state the fields you represent. I'm going to start at my right.
Good morning, Sherry DeBlair. I'm representing emergency services personnel. Essential services personnel, just kidding.
Christine Bond, I'm with St. Vincent de Paul.
Linda Byers, resident.
Sharissa Doty, Clearwater Housing Authority.
Rick Vale, Affordable Home Builder.
And I'm Robin Feel, your chair, and I represent the residential lending community. This is the second of 4 meetings of this committee. I thought we had a great discussion at the first meeting. I know we have a lot to discuss today, so let's get right into the agenda. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of the committee's meeting on September 28th. See, today's the 28th. September 10th, 2024. May I have a motion to approve item 2.1?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. The main item on today's agenda is to continue our discussion led by Amanda Warner from Wade Trim. Ms. Warner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay this morning? Okay, great. Thank you for your patience as we get started here. All right, so today we're holding our second meeting of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. As you know, this meeting was postponed essentially because of the hurricane coming through for the last meeting on October 8th. So we are resuming today on October 28th. So just to remind you of where we are in the schedule, we started this process in August when the AHAC was originally appointed. We are now in our series of meetings spanning from September through November. Once we get through the November meeting, we will move forward to a public hearing on December 3rd. And then in December, the recommendations of the AHAC will be carried forward to City Council for their consideration and hopefully approval at that time. So our first meeting was September 10th. As I mentioned, we rescheduled to October 28th for today's second meeting. The next meeting will be November 12th, and after that, we'll have a public hearing on December 3rd. All of these meetings start at 9 a.m. As you know, they're typically on Tuesdays. Due to the rescheduling, today's meeting, we had to move it to Monday, but moving forward, they will be on Tuesdays again. All right, so as we discussed during our last meeting, the original Affordable Housing Advisory Committee report, which is the Local Housing Incentive Strategy report, had a series of values, principles, and a vision statement. The affordable housing values that were in that report were that affordable housing supports a dynamic and competitive economy. It improves social well-being and builds a sense of community, aspires to have housing that fits the city's workforce, and everyone deserves a safe, affordable home. Those are the values that were established by the committee in 2023, and at our last meeting, you recommended that those values be continued into the 2024 committee. The affordable housing principles established in 2023 were that affordable housing is affordable over the long term, that there's a diverse supply that provides for a mix of income levels and the diverse needs of residents, that affordable housing is designed to be sustainable, energy and cost efficient, and minimizes physical barriers to accessibility. That affordable housing is an aesthetic character with the surrounding neighborhood. It's strategically located and pedestrian oriented with access to mass transit, open spaces, educational institutions, employment or workforce training opportunities, and that affordable housing is incentivized to promote incorporation of affordable housing into all housing developments. And then finally, looking at those values and those principles, the affordable housing vision that was established in 2023 was the City of Clearwater will incentivize the development of a diverse supply of housing that is safe, accessible, affordable, sustainable, energy and cost efficient, that blends into the aesthetic character of all the city's neighborhoods, that is proximate to public amenities and employment opportunities, and which supports an inclusive community and the diverse needs of residents. And at our last meeting, you recommended that that be carried forward as well. Is that still true? Okay, all right, very good. So we will keep the values, principles, and visions as stated and carry that through to the current 2024 report. So if you recall, during our last meeting, we talked about barriers and incentives and had an initial discussion about what are the current barriers and incentives in the City of Clearwater. Just to remind you, there are 11 incentive areas that Florida statute requires the AHAC to look at. Those 11 incentive areas are expedited review process, modification of fees, flexible densities, infrastructure capacity, accessory dwelling units, parking reductions, flexible lot configurations, modifications of street requirements, pre-adoption policy consideration, inventory of public lands, and proximity to transportation, employment, and mixed-use development. So those are the 11 incentives areas that we are required to discuss today. Additionally, over the years, I believe starting in 2008, there were an additional 5 incentives that the committee identified, and those were adaptive reuse, the land development code, the communication and marketing of affordable housing, financing, and partnerships. So those are additional incentive topics that are not required by Florida statute, but have been added by the committee over the years. So to reflect back on our September 10th discussion, that was the first AHAC meeting for 2024, you identified the following barriers and incentives to affordable housing, and these are generally summarized. I know we had a lot of discussion at that first meeting, but this encapsulates a summary of those. The first one was renter cost burden, the high cost of rent, utilities, and transportation-related issues, particularly the high cost of housing pushing persons further outside of the city limits, thus creating some transportation-related issues as well as people try to get to employment back in the city. Rising interest rates and insurance costs for homeownership. These are what we call third-party barriers. They're things that the city can't really control directly, but perhaps there are ways that we can ameliorate those barriers. Lack of affordable housing for senior citizens, particularly senior citizens are on fixed or low income. They are challenged to find affordable housing and maintain that affordable housing. I believe during the last meeting we talked about the use of hotels and other things as temporary solutions that really aren't solutions for the long term for senior citizens living in the community that are that don't have access to affordable housing. Investor real estate competition. So for example, build to rent homes, investors coming in and buying up the existing housing stock, driving up costs and then creating more affordability issues within the community. Condominium assessments, the milestone assessments as a result of the Surfside condominium collapse, the issues surrounding that in terms of condominium living costs are going up. What does that mean for persons that maybe have had those units for a long period of time, maybe on fixed incomes, and now these assessments are coming into play, and that housing may not be affordable for them anymore. And then where are they going to go if they are displaced? Accessory dwelling units, talking about that as a potential incentive for affordable housing, allowing them, and then potential rental rebate program related to that. Density in general, affordable housing density bonuses, consideration of those, and then education and marketing, just making persons more aware of the resources that are available to get them connected with affordable housing. So those were the primary topics that we talked about. There may have been some other things, but those are the things that bubbled up really to the top of the discussion last time on September 10th. So recommendations, so your homework, if you recall, and I know this is quite a while ago and we've had 2 hurricanes since, but your homework from September was to review the prior 2023 LHIS Local Housing Incentive Strategy Report, evaluate the recommendations in that report, and then consider whether each recommendation should be continued, modified, or removed, and then identify any new affordable housing incentives not covered in the report that we want to include in this year's 2024 report. So for the next hour or so, we're just going to go through those recommendations and talk about them if you've had a chance to take a look at them, and provide any comments that you have about those recommendations, and then we'll ask the committee to make a decision about whether to continue, modify, or remove that recommendation. So the first one is under the topic of expedited review. So this is one of the 11 incentive areas that the committee is required to look at. So the recommendation 1.1 is to continue to use the request for expedited permit processing for affordable housing activity form to fast track affordable housing projects. Single-family projects submitted with this form will receive priority during the permit review process by completing reviews of single-family permit reviews within 4 days of the initial submittal and within 3 days of all subsequent submittals. Does anyone have any comments about that recommendation?
Is this just for a single-family residential, not multifamily?
I think it covers both types of housing. However, single family in particular, I believe a committee, I forget whether it was last year or the year before, wanted to specify the timing for the single family with that 4-day and 3-day.
Okay.
But it does cover both. It's just the single family has that time frame with the 4 days and the 3 days.
And do you know if they've been successful with this thus far?
My understanding is yes, and they have been using this form. Any other comments about it? Does the committee have a sense of whether the recommendation should be continued, modified, or removed?
Continue.
Continue? Okay. All right, we will continue that recommendation into the next report.
Do
All
you
right,
have
the
any
next one is
idea-
expedited review.
Excuse me, do you have any idea how many of those happened in the past year?
I don't, Gina would probably know. I don't think Gina's here today. Yeah.
But I can get that answer for you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Excuse me, does that include duplexes and triplexes and rental properties as well for affordable housing?
I believe it's any affordable housing
Any
project that comes through their department. So, and it's a form that it's not required to be filled out for develop generally. It's that if somebody wants to claim that they're an affordable housing development and get any kind of incentives associated with that, that is what they would fill out, and then they get the expedited review, et cetera. Yeah. All right, so the next one is under the same topic, expedited review. It's recommendation 1.2. And the Assistant Director of Economic Development and Housing and Permit Manager will continue to be the primary and secondary points of contact when submitting multifamily affordable housing projects. Through close coordination, these 2 staff positions will create and oversee an affordable housing one-stop streamlined permitting process, act as a liaison between the developer and all departments involved in the review and permitting process, organize and participate in pre-application meetings, provide necessary information and forms to the developer to avoid delays during the application and review process, create a process and definitive project requirement checklist for affordable housing projects for each level of review and stage of permitting, create a definitive but feasible review timeline for affordable housing projects considering variables such as the type, size, and impact in the community depending on the level of review and stage of permitting, release to the applicant and all city departments involved at once written statements for additional requirements and project determinations, track the review process through the city's online e-permit system, and report to the developer the status of the application. And my understanding is this is ongoing and all of these steps are currently done as part of that process.
And they work well for the city?
My understanding is that it's working, yeah.
Is this only for new construction?
I believe this is for new construction projects, yes.
And are these projects underway with CDBG or other funding through the city?
I
Or
believe
is-
these are not one specific funding source, but multiple funding sources.
Okay.
So it may be a combination of private and public and grant funding sources. All right, does the committee have a sense of whether that recommendation should be continued, modified, or removed?
Continue.
Continued, okay. All right, the next recommendation under expedited review is 1.3, continue to improve customer service toward potential project applicants by maintaining a positive attitude, offering a quick response time via emails or phone calls, making available project requirements and forms, providing a list of potential mentors experienced in affordable housing development by end of first quarter 2024 and updated annually thereafter, and utilizing new technology to enhance administrative efficiencies and to educate developers about the city's affordable housing incentives and permitting process by means of link sharing, web forms, video webinars, virtual meetings and forums, and other tools.
So do we know, I know that we talked at length about this
Last
year,
session,
and
yeah.
one of the things about the, having the mentorship.
Right,
Has that happened? Do we know?
right. I'm gonna defer to Dylan.
We have a membership list. Usually. Oh, yeah.
Because I know we talked about that there are some builders who do a lot of like habitat, and, you know, perhaps a builder who doesn't know a lot about it could mentor with a builder who does a lot. And it was something we discussed a lot last year, so.
Yeah, I read that in the report.
Yeah, so we generally, when we get a new developer that comes in, whether they've done affordable or not, or if they've only done one house, we'll generally mentor them through it. Our staff in-house. So, you know, we had one over on Limbo Drive that had come in. He only done, you know, one housing project, and we worked with him. It didn't work, you know, for his numbers, unfortunately, but you know, we take an active interest in developers that come into the city, whether they're experienced or not.
But I know, like, what was talked about with this mentorship in this recommendation from last year was having an established developer who has done this many times, for example, Habitat, to mentor a new developer or somebody who doesn't do a lot. Have we
We have not made that
match
connection.
at all?
No, unfortunately not. But we'd be interested.
We would be interested as well.
Okay.
I mean, there's a huge need for the, I think, for a mentorship on that.
Yeah, okay, let's connect on that.
Right, so I think with that discussion on this particular topic, I think we need to talk about the fourth bullet down and perhaps revise that then to create a new implementation timeline or some kind of more detailed direction on that, since it's been talked about but not actually implemented yet. So providing a list of potential mentors experienced in affordable housing development by end of 2024 or by first quarter 2025, pushing it out, or I'll leave that up to the committee on how to rephrase that.
I would say first quarter 2025,
Yes.
just
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
current events.
Agree.
All right.
Just a
And-
question, for the offering quick response time, just curious, how does that measure? Is there like a customer service survey that the website offers? Or,
I'm not sure how that's measured in terms of, I know that, just from what I've heard in talking with Gina in past years, is that they just tried to be as responsive as possible, and I think Dylan, your group as well, tries to be responsive when you receive interest in
Yeah, so
projects.
the general rule is responses within 24 hours, or one business day if it's on Friday.
With that, did you want to put that timing into the policy or just leave it general? Okay.
yeah, I'm not asking for metrics to be applied, I was just curious to see, like, is
Yeah.
there like a survey or like, you know,
Right.
things, feedback that we're getting from customers? I
Whether or
don't know how
not
many
that
calls.
is truly responsive to them.
Yeah,
is the- okay.
exactly.
Mhm. Any other comments about this one? All right, so with that, we'll modify this one. We'll update the date to 2025 so that there's a little more time to implement that, and then revisit it at next year's meeting of the AHAC in order to see whether that proceeded. All right, so we'll go to 1.4. Developed by, this is another first quarter 2024. Developed by end of first quarter 2024 and annually update thereafter a brochure and other informational handouts to be published in a prominent location on the city's affordable housing webpage that explains the city's development approval and permitting process to developers, including but not limited to the relationship between city and county policies and the regulation of land use density and intensity, and city-sponsored incentives for affordable housing, such as the request for expedited permitting processing for affordable housing activity form, affordable housing density bonus, parking reductions, and non-conforming exemption for affordable housing. We marked this one as in progress. There's no specific brochure yet. That has still not happened. However, but the web page continues to be improved, and other metrics are put on that web page.
So would we need to modify it to 25?
If that timing sounds.
Actually, we did develop a brochure, and I should have brought it today. Yeah, we have
I
it.
know that, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's on the website, but it's the same information that's on the website is also in that brochure. So I'll bring it next time. It's just a 3-page, threefold, but it's good to be able to give, again, a new developer, it gives you kind of a breakdown of the process, funding types, and those kinds of things, so.
I take that back.
So maybe, I mean, because
Yeah.
it didn't happen by the end of the first quarter,
Yeah.
maybe we just say by the end of 24?
Yep. All right, so we'll modify that one, and by end of year 2024 will be the revised language on that one.
And what department, when you go to the website,
Yeah, that's a good question.
where do you
How can I
go
find
to
it
what
on the
department?
website?
Planning?
It's my Clearwater / housing.
Okay, so it goes to
It's our
housing
website,
department.
And that's gonna have a breakdown of all the
Okay.
programs.
Okay.
Excellent, very good.
And that request for expedited permit processing for affordable housing activity form does exist?
It does exist, yeah. That's the one, just to refer back, I think that was recommendation 1.1, that's that process in that form. It does exist, so. All right, very good. All right, 1.5 is encourage affordable housing developers of single-family homes to submit frequently used building example plans for pre-screening by the building official to further expedite the staff permit review process. My understanding is that this has been encouraged, but no templates have been submitted yet. So they're welcome to, it's just that no one's actually submitted the template yet. Okay. Should that recommendation be continued, modified, or removed?
I mean, nobody's submitted anything, right?
Nobody's submitted anything yet.
There's really no incentive for them to do it, or, I mean, I don't wanna just keep something in here
Right.
that nobody actually does, so I think we might want to.
And then,
Does-
Up to,
go ahead.
Doesn't Habitat submit?
This is something that we're in the process of, is creating master plans that encompass the typical homes that we use with multiple elevations, so we can submit them through. And then the only thing that we would have to go through is zoning and things like that. But it'll decrease the amount of time that we go through permitting.
And does this allow a developer come in and they would look at your plan, and can they copy it and share it? Do you share those plans? How does that?
Our plans are not proprietary, so, I don't have we wouldn't have a problem sharing something like that with the design, but as far as they would have to take it to their architect
Right,
or what have
right.
you.
I think the intent of this recommendation, if I recall, because this is something we talked about at length last year, was just to allow the building official and the planning department to have a look at the plans in advance, so that when they do get submitted, that they're able to expedite that review, because they've already been pre-reviewed on a bulk scale, so that it can expedite that review process even further. That's my understanding of.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well, that especially for a developer like Habitat who does a lot, and I'm sure there are a few others, to have their plans, their frequently used plans already on file with the city makes the screening process, review process hopefully a lot faster.
I mean, I'm not asking for it to be removed, I just don't know if there's no appetite for it. You know, like there's already an expedited review process in place. I don't know if faster than 4 days is sufficient enough. I'm just saying, if there's no appetite for it, or otherwise, probably more incentive for developers to want to use it, or, you know, I'm sensitive to keeping things in that aren't going anywhere, right? Like,
Right.
just for the sake of having them, if there's no appetite for it, it seems like a good idea, but it doesn't actually manifest.
And it's obviously been tested, has it not? So I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah, it's up to the committee on this one, whether to,
Well, we could give it some more time and see, but next evaluation, then we could rethink it if we wanted to remove it. But if Habitat's in the process of moving forward with such, then maybe we should keep it at least for now until.
Well, we're still on average about 4 weeks to get plans. Even on the homes that are similar, that are done over and over. We tend to get a lot of the same comments. I believe that's on our end, that we're not following the process that the city sends back to avoid those comments. But in the creation of the master plans, everything will be addressed from on the comments, so where we're not going through that process. But Clearwater is the fastest municipality we deal with the turnaround time. So.
Yeah, I'm good with keeping it on and seeing where it goes.
so just so I understand, we're keeping it for now and then perhaps revisit it in another year after maybe some templates get submitted and see how that goes in terms of expediting. Okay. Okay. So now we're moving on to a different incentive area. So this is the modification of fees incentive area. Recommendation 2.1 was to coordinate with Pinellas County regarding the database rate flexibility within the multimodal impact fee to support the provision of affordable housing. This has been completed. The impact fee is discounted in terms of the multimodal impact fee, so this has already happened. Okay. Great.
Fine.
So continue. Okay. So the next one is to annually assess the financial, legal, and administrative feasibility of reducing, refunding, or redefining by unit size the cost of impact fees and/or permitting fees related to the development of affordable housing with the goal of being on par with other municipalities in Pinellas County. This has been completed, and most recently, the Parks and Recreation impact waiver was completed. That's probably the most recent impact fee reduction that was done by the city. So continue, modify, or remove.
I would say continue.
Okay. Okay. So the next one is 2.3. The Planning and Development Department will continue to implement the fee schedule of fees, rates, and charges ordinance to provide for a reduction in the plan review and permit fees for single-family homes. And this was completed, and I believe as of last year, the fees were reduced by 75%, which is a significant reduction. All right, so I'm seeing nods, so I'm just gonna say continue. All right, 2.4, the Economic Development and Housing Department will continue to assist with the payment of plan review and permit fees and impact fees utilizing state and federal funds designated for affordable housing. This has been completed. The fees have been reduced, plus there was a recent policy to write down loans to achieve profit on city-funded projects. So the city is doing this currently to promote affordable housing. All right, I'm seeing continue. All right.
Is it possible to see those numbers, see how much they did spend and how much they did invest in the budget or something?
All right, so we're going to another incentive area. So this is flexible densities. Recommendation 3.1 was to continue to provide an allowance of density flexibility for affordable housing developments by city policy and to monitor legislation regarding density flexibility, including but not limited to the Live Local Act. This was completed. The density bonus was recently clarified, and the recent Live Local Act by policy incentivizes affordable housing in terms of density flexibility. Also, the city recently included the public amenities incentive pool, which is another option for affordable housing as well. So,
Continue.
okay, seeing nods. All right. 3.2 is maintain specific parameters to grant density flexibility for affordable housing projects as allowed in the Community Development Code within the different zoning districts. This was completed, the density bonus was clarified, and again, the Live Local Act is something that basically mandates this by policy, and then the public amenities incentive pool was added, so similarly. All right. 3.3 is to continue to define the density allowance for an affordable housing project as part of a pre-application meeting prior to formal submission of the civil site engineering requirements. This is currently ongoing. The city's BPRC meetings regularly review projects and provide that pre-application opportunity.
Okay.
Continue, yeah.
So with the implementation of that, when it said that the city would do a frequently asked questions about the Live Local Act, and it would be posted on the website, do you know if that happened?
I don't know if, is that there?
Great.
Yeah, there's a memo from planning development.
Great.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, infrastructure capacity. So this is a topic, this was an incentive area where in the past, the AHAC has not provided a recommendation for this. And the AHAC has stated that we do not recommend that the city of Clearwater include the reservation of infrastructure capacity for housing for very low-income persons, low-income persons, and moderate-income persons as an incentive for the provision of affordable housing. Reason being is that the city of Clearwater and Pinellas County in general is very built out, so the infrastructure that is here is the infrastructure that exists. So the reserving infrastructure capacity, typically it'd have to be a significant project for that to come into play, is my understanding of this recommendation in the past. Okay, so I'm saying
I
continue?
agree.
Okay. Accessory dwelling units. So we talked about accessory dwelling units at the last meeting. This is a topic area that Florida statute requires the committee to look at. So recommendation 5.1 is to continue to allow for accessory dwelling units in non-residential zoning districts as described within the city's community development code. This is completed and has been ongoing for many years that ADUs have been allowed in non-residential areas. So I'm saying nods, okay. All right. Number 5.2, again related to accessory dwelling units. I highlighted on here the investor real estate and the ADUs rental rebate topics as being related to this. The recommendation of the previous committee was 5.2, implement City Council Comprehensive Plan Policy QP 6.1.7 and Policy QP 6.1.10 to allow accessory dwelling units by providing corresponding standards in the CDC. Such standards may include the maximum unit size, parking standards, setback and height requirements to facilitate review and to ensure neighborhood compatibility, which may be presented using a pattern book or similar means to expedite approval. And then occupancy tenure requirements so that the principal dwelling unit remains owner occupied. The accessory dwelling unit is not used for short-term rental and the number of occupants is limited to that which is reasonable for the unit size. This was recently completed by ordinance number 9758-24. Any discussion regarding ADUs? Okay.
Do we know how many ADUs are in the Clearwater area?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure how many are in the Clearwater area. I know there have been a few applications, but it hasn't been
Big.
a super successful program yet, but it is new.
So the unit has to be owner occupied, it cannot be it says short-term rental, could it be a long-term rental?
Yes, I think it allows for long-term rental. They're just, I believe the policy is trying to discourage short-term
Sure.
rentals where they're turning over very quickly and somebody's not actually able to live
Okay.
stably in the unit for a longer period of time, so. And I want to bring up, you probably all received this document as part of the agenda materials, but each of these recommendations or incentive areas, there's more detailed information about the city's current practices. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. This was included in the agenda packet, and then the handout is provided again today, just in case you want me to refer to that as well. But that provides the city's current practices related to that incentive area as a summary. Let's see, 5.3. So accessory dwelling units, staying on that topic. 5.3 was to provide flexibility for other alternative unit types, such as co-housing, to incentivize unconventional solutions to address affordable housing needs and support aging in place within existing neighborhoods. This is in progress. There's not specific language in yet. However, the recent comprehensive plan amendment opens the door for this. If you look at the recent comprehensive plan amendment that was done to the City of Clearwater comprehensive plan, there's some policies that generally open the door to this. It's just they haven't been codified yet in the community development code. So, any thoughts about this one, 5.3? All right, I'm gonna mark continue. The next incentive area is parking reductions. Continue to allow flexible setback requirements for affordable housing developments. This is ongoing. This is typically based on the level of review for the project, or if the project is certified as affordable housing, that's when those flexible setbacks will be considered. Okay, all right, so we're gonna definitely continue that one. I'm seeing a lot of nods on that. All right. 6.2. Continue to tie reductions in off-street parking requirements to proximity and access to alternative modes of transportation, including transit, sidewalks, trails, and other options. Again, this is ongoing, and this is provided if certified as affordable housing. This is both in the comp plan and codified in the community development code. All right, flexible lot configurations. Continue to allow flexible lot configurations for affordable housing developments while remaining sensitive to the character and context of existing neighborhoods. Okay. Continue on. Next topic area is modification of street requirements. This is another one where previous committees have decided to provide no recommendation. And reason being, because such standards are in place to benefit public health and safety. We do not recommend that the city utilize the modification of street requirements as an incentive for affordable housing. In the past, the city has, the committee has had the philosophy that those street requirements, minimum street width and so forth, are there for a reason, and that's something to maintain. So, any discussion about that? No. Okay. Pre-adoption policy consideration, number 9. As part of annual reporting, the Economic Development and Housing Department will continue to review all regulations and ordinances that may affect the cost of housing. This is ongoing. This is something that you're doing right now. So this is something the LHIS report and the AHAC requires every year for a meeting to discuss anything that affects the cost of housing. So, all right. I'm seeing nods, we'll continue that. Pre-adoption policy consideration. Continue the review process maintained by the senior executive team through which any new regulatory instrument created in the city, so ordinances, regulations, etc., or by related state legislation can be evaluated for its effect on housing affordability. And I put a little star at the top of this one for senior housing condo assessment. This is one where, this is something that state legislation is now causing perhaps an affordability issue. So this recommendation was really to continue the review process by where the city talks about this and sees what they can do. whether it's from a lobbying standpoint or monitoring its own city policies, essentially. So, any thoughts about this one? Because I know this is kind of a topic that we talked about, how state legislation is affecting us locally. Anything?
I think this is great.
Right. All right, so we'll continue that. Yeah. Oh. That's weird, it's not showing up. There we go.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, I didn't have the slide, that was, okay. 10.1, inventory of public lands, all right. So this one is, the Economic Development and Housing Department will continue to maintain the inventory of publicly owned land suitable for the development of affordable housing. If you recall, the Live Local Act is requiring the city to do this now. However, the SHIP requirements preceding that for the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee also required that. So now you have two requirements for this essentially, but putting the list together once will satisfy both. So this is ongoing. The list has been prepared and is maintained by city staff. So, okay.
Is there a whole lot of public land available?
So my understanding is there's currently 31 properties on that list. So, and that, I believe in this handout, it lists those 31 properties that are
Yeah,
available.
I can see a list.
It's on page 11 are the addresses of each of the 31 properties that are currently on the list. Now this list evolves over time, so it'll be updated triennially per the requirement. And then, Dylan, do you have a sense right now of how many are on the list? Or?
Likely one less than that. It's probably about 30
Okay.
at this point.
Okay. All right, so recommendation, let's see, so 10.2, continue to publish the public land inventory owned by the city for affordable housing and a link to Pinellas County's inventory on the city's webpage for prospective developers and nonprofit agencies for developing affordable housing. And that list is on the website. And there's a link to that as well in this document, should you need to look at the list. So, so we'll continue that one. If I don't hear any conversation, I'll just continue.
Continue.
It's a quiet group this morning. All right, it's Monday, right? So 10.3 is continue to make publicly owned land available to prospective developers and nonprofit agencies for developing affordable housing. The city has always done this and will continue to do it. All right, 10.4. Again, inventory of public lands. The Economic Development and Housing Department will coordinate with the Planning and Development Department to identify properties having repeat code violations that may be suitable for rehabilitation, acquisition, or demolition for affordable housing. My understanding is that although the city does this, it hasn't really resulted in a lot of projects, so to speak. So all this recommendation is in here. We're not sure how effective it's been over time, and that goes to your comments before. Any discussion about this one in particular? No.
These are residential properties, condos, these are all code violations. So what would that process even look like if it's something that's condemned or?
Yeah, I think it's properties that are blighted or condemned, and then determining whether or not the city can, yeah.
So what we did was we connected with code and we requested an Excel sheet of all of their code violations. We sorted through that and reached out to homeowners. Unfortunately, we didn't really get any real feedback. We did send them like a postcard with just some information on it. So yeah, no projects have stemmed from that yet, but we did complete the project.
So thoughts about this one, continuing or modifying or removing?
I mean, I just have similar thoughts with, we can keep it in here, but I just have similar thoughts with, if it's just not working, right? They're great ideas, but at some point, you know, if the idea just doesn't come to fruition, there's just, not everything makes sense in reality. Better in theory than there's a question of why keep it on.
Is there a list of homes that have been actually condemned and no action's been taken against those property owners?
There is, yes.
And
I
how
can send
long-
them out to the group.
Okay, and how long do they remain on such lists without any action?
So generally they'll have a fee that's being placed on the property either daily or
Okay.
some term.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, the city could foreclose on that property. I don't know the rate at which they do that, but there are some properties with significant amount of fees that have been leaned against the property at this point.
And are these properties occupied that have been condemned?
It's a blend. I mean, there's some of them that, not necessarily condemned, but have, they may have a tree debris on their roof or something like that, and it's been building up a fee for 10 years. Some of these properties are on Clearwater Beach, some in North Greenwood. It's really a blend of all kinds of different properties. So we actually reached out and with information on our rehab program to households that look like they could potentially qualify. And again, no responses back from that, but.
Seems like such a good idea, right? That somebody that has all these assessed fees would want some assistance in rehab. I'm curious as to know why nobody would want to take them up on it. What else are your options?
Unless the home is beyond rehabilitation. And people shouldn't be living in homes that are condemned, let's put it that way, in my estimation.
It could also be education. Sometimes people are scared.
Yeah.
They don't understand the application process. Or, can I really go through this? So some of it could be more education too.
And to be fair, maybe with the recent hurricanes, we have a lot more properties that qualify. And I think people are really educating themselves on the resources now that they've never had to before. FEMA, all of these other things that they've just never had to look for. So maybe we just keep it in because right now I suggest we would probably have a lot more that fall into this category.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Dylan, with the notices that went out to these properties, was there education about next steps for them? Just to kind of pick up from the education topic?
Yeah, they had contact information for direct contacts in our department, as well as links to our website that we just redid the website maybe early '24, and it was a pretty comprehensive update to our site, and it does lay out specifics as far as what they would need to qualify, the documentation they should put together before contacting us, and so forth.
Do you have a interlocal agreement with code compliance for referrals to your program? If an officer's out evaluating a property, that they could give them the contact information to housing or provide them with an application or so forth, or?
I don't know that we do, but I can check into that.
No,
Okay, you do not, okay.
well, that's a good suggestion.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
So, with that, any recommendations for modifying this? Because it sounds like we had a little more discussion about this one in particular. Not sure whether the education topic or the handout, in-field handout of educational materials or some other component to this that may push this forward a little bit.
It's going to take some thought.
Okay.
It's not a decision that I could make right here
Okay.
at this time, but
Okay.
I would leave it in for consideration
Mhm.
for amendment as we move forward, maybe through the next quarter.
Okay. All right. So with all of these recommendations today, this is not your last chance to talk about them. We still have a couple more meetings. So, anything that comes up today as we go through these recommendations and you think maybe, there's some kind of aspect of it you want to add or you wish you had said something further about it, we can come back and talk about that at the next meeting. This is kind of your first bite at the apple, so to speak, of going through the recommendations and really understanding what's in there. And then next time we can refine these if there's anything further. So I'm going to go ahead and star this one and mark it as one that maybe we discuss again and see if there's anything that we can do to make this a little more effective. So, okay. All right. So that was 10.4 regarding the repeat code violations. So we'll go to 10.5, Continue to monitor the policy procedure for distribution of city-owned lots and consider including energy-efficient items and related emerging technologies into the scoring matrix to support environmentally friendly development in partnership with Greenpoint 2.0 timeline. This is ongoing. The city does have a lot disposition procedure. That procedure was updated fairly recently, I think within the last 2 or 3 years. That is ongoing as well, so.
Can you talk a little bit about the scoring matrix, what that involves?
Yeah, so my understanding of this is that there is a small committee that meets with the lot disposition, of how the policy works now. There's a small committee that meets to discuss the development application and for the lot disposition, what would support that. And then they meet and score it. There's several different items on it. I don't remember what the list of.
There's probably 20-ish
Yeah.
questions on there, and they range from, it does have, a scoring criteria for green technology. It does have a scoring criteria if the developer owns an adjacent property, those kinds of things. And I can send that scoring matrix out to the group. Actually, we attach that to the request for proposals, or if it's in the CRA, request for letters of interest, and the developer, the respondee, actually fills that out.
Any more discussion about this one?
Can you explain exactly what the lot distribution program is?
So our affordable housing inventory list, we take an inventory of the city's property and determine which properties are available and acceptable for the development of affordable housing. Once we have that list, that goes live. If a developer comes to us and requests that one of those properties be released or noticed for surplus and disposition, then we'll do that through that process. And generally, in the past, we had a few single-family home sites. We actually have no more at this point. It's all multifamily or mixed-use sites that we'd like to see developed. A lot of them are in North Greenwood on MLK.
Is it a competitive process?
It is.
And once these are listed as affordable housing properties, they have to be used for affordable housing?
The council has approved them to be surplus for affordable housing. I don't know that they necessarily have to be used for affordable housing, but the council has approved, and all the state departments have approved that these are acceptable properties for affordable housing development.
And are they purchased from the city?
It depends. They can be donated from the city as part of the incentive package.
And I would assume that it would be basically for affordable housing as a condition if it was donated.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We wouldn't be able to donate it for our charter unless it was for affordable housing.
Got it.
But if a developer comes in with a big dollar offer, not interested in affordable housing, that would be taken to the council for a decision?
If we were putting the project out and we noticed it for an affordable housing development, that's our intention. So we would likely, I don't know that we would look at a market rate deal if we had other responses that were affordable.
How does the city acquire those lots to begin with?
A lot of these lots were acquired a long time ago. I know that Clearwater Gardens on 1250 Cleveland Street, that was an acquisition by the city. I think it was a motel before, and they acquired it. And over the years, they used it for staging for Cleveland Street, and then now obviously it's being developed into Clearwater Gardens. But it's kind of a blend. Some came through tax rolls, like tax lien sales, those kinds of things, or acquisitions.
Great. Any other discussion regarding this one, or continue or modify?
Continue.
Continue? Okay. All right, proximity to transportation, employment, and mixed-use development. 11.1, the city will maintain and implement policies of the city's comprehensive plan that incentivize affordable housing development proximate to transportation hubs, major employment centers, and mixed-use developments. There are multiple policies in the new comprehensive plan that relate to this. Those are provided in that summary document that you have. So this just would be a question of whether to continue or modify this recommendation.
Continue.
Okay. All right, adaptive reuse. 12.1, continue to allow and promote adaptive reuse involving the conversion of surplus and/or outmoded buildings, including old churches, school buildings, hospitals, train stations, warehouses, factories, hotels, office buildings, malls, etc., to mixed uses where permitted by zoning district or by the Live Local Act. This is ongoing, and the Live Local Act applies to commercial, industrial, and mixed-use property.
Continue.
Continue.
It's a no-brainer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not catching up with the behind. There we go. Land Development Code. Thank you, Colin. Land Development Code. Continue to incentivize developers to address recommended design standards for affordable housing developments consistent with Section 3-920.A3C 1-3 of the City of Clearwater Community Development Code. Other criteria could include, but are not limited to, provide direct visual access to open space for residents, consider play areas when developing family housing, provide nighttime outdoor illumination for safety, use landscape standards and buffers to screen nuisances and separate public and private areas, centrally locate common facilities, use crime prevention through environmental design when practical and financially feasible, and include electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And basically this recommendation has to do with making sure that affordable housing, as part of that affordable housing package that the developer is providing, provides livability for the residents, so amenities and things that make it a quality place to live.
Continue.
So I'm seeing nods to continue. All right. 14, communication and marketing of affordable housing. Continue to improve current communication channels and marketing materials to reach different stakeholders interested in affordable housing. Some of the suggested actions include, but are not limited to, conduct an educational campaign in conjunction with regular city communications, rebrand affordable housing as workforce housing that supports the diverse needs of residents through a variety of unit product types compatible with the city's neighborhoods, partner with Amplify Clearwater and others to broadly promote the benefits of and opportunities for affordable housing development in the city and to communicate successes, prepare, update, and keep current marketing materials for the general public in order to promote the different housing programs that the city offers, including homebuyer education and down payment assistance to support home ownership. Prepare, update, and keep current marketing materials that help developers and the general public to understand the application criteria, permitting process, and the number of incentives available for rehabilitation and new construction of affordable housing units in the city. Make accessible to the public an inventory and map of suitable residential vacant land available for development. Include a section on the city's webpage called Affordable Housing and Community Development, specifically dedicated to the promotion of affordable housing, and share outcomes and analytics with appropriate city boards and committees. And the city does all of these things to some degree, some more or less currently.
I would like to recommend that it include partnerships
Okay.
with our lenders, realtors, title companies, inspectors, and so forth that are, as it relates to purchase of real estate with down payment and closing cost assistance,
Okay.
including meetings that provide for question and answers and so forth, and conditions that those vendors may need to know as they proceed in using the programs that are available to the city. I would also like to recommend that our contractors, I'm assuming that you have contractors that you call or bid out for residential rehabilitation, that you keep all of the contractors and give contractors an opportunity to bid the projects and be on the approved list, if you will, through procurement and so forth, you know.
Okay.
All these others are well too to have,
Okay.
but there's no
Yeah.
mention of those that are particular to certain strategies that are in the local housing assistance plan
Okay.
or multifamily or any of the
Okay.
other conditions, okay.
I think there's another recommendation that we're gonna be coming up on shortly called partnerships that I
Yeah,
think
okay.
would probably, I think for this one, I'll look at how to perhaps incorporate that here, but I think that partnerships recommendation that we're gonna be talking about in a few slides, I think would probably accommodate that recommendation as a sub-bullet under there as well, so,
Good.
okay. All right, any other comments about any of the other bullets under this one?
Will we be able to see the outcomes and analytics at some point?
I think the outcomes and analytics, I think there is some benchmarking occurring on the city's website. There's a benchmark, I forget what the appropriate word for it is, app or
Dashboard.
dashboard, that's the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
There's a dashboard currently on there, and that is where some of that information is being conveyed. I know there's probably other regular reporting that's going on.
There is, yeah. We report our accomplishments at the end of the year through the CAPER, but the affordable housing dashboard that we have put together this year is really an easy way to kind of dissect all that data. It has demographic data and then actual specific data to our department.
All right. Okay, so 14, let's see here, 15.1. Diversify, so now we're moving on to the topic of financing. And I highlighted on here the renter cost burden and the homeowner cost topics. This recommendation has to do with diversifying financial strategies to contribute to the new construction and maintenance of affordable housing and financial assistance to obtain affordable housing. So the recommendation is very general, but what it's getting at is providing as much diversity in those financial strategies that are being offered. So whether it's down payment assistance or it's rebates or whatever that financial strategy looks like, trying to come up with more diverse options for persons. Any comments about that one? All right. Hearing nothing, I'll continue that one. The next one is 15.2, and we're talking about evaluating the feasibility of reducing paying code violation liens on lots suitable for affordable housing development. I think this connects back with the other recommendation that we were talking about regarding code enforcement. This hasn't been started, and it requires a change to city council policy, and limited opportunities to implement has been the staff opinion in past AHAC meetings on this one. Any discussion about this one?
So is there a chance the city council will change the policy, or should we just remove this?
I think that, there's always the option to recommend something, and then city council, when they review the LHIS report, that's their opportunity whether to accept that recommendation or not.
I'm sorry. But this sounds like the one that just we just don't have a whole lot of appetite right now for it.
Right,
But maybe in the current environment after 2 hurricanes,
right.
maybe we see. And I would suspect that if there was an appetite for it, then it would be a little bit more incentive to actually change the policy,
Mhm.
right? But it's hard to ask somebody to change something if nobody's using it.
Right.
So I say if we keep the last one in, we keep this one in.
Okay.
It's my suggestion.
Is everybody, okay, I'm seeing nods on continue, so we'll continue this one. So now we're going to 15.3. Ensure city staffing levels are adequate to achieve the AHAC recommendations of the LHIS report. This recommendation was added just last year because I think there was a sentiment that there were a lot of recommendations and a lot of things that were requiring a more immediate response, and it was just making sure that city staff had the hours basically to be able to do that, and that's how this is added.
I think I did. I think I finally got it off. Sorry.
So this is ongoing, so. Okay.
Does the city have money to increase staffing?
We did get an FTE last year, that position has been filled. Our staff assistant is also on assignment pay, and she's been assisting the housing side with the collection of information, data input, those kinds of things. So we're doing okay.
Okay, all right, just curious.
All right. So seeing no objection, we'll continue. And then now we get to the partnerships one. So this is develop a public and private partnerships for the provision of affordable housing. There's quite a few sub-bullets under this, and I believe this is where we can connect Ms. Byers' comments into this one in terms of both contractors and real estate professionals, lenders, et cetera. So develop public and private partnerships for the provision of affordable housing, prepare, advertise, and maintain an inventory of affordable housing providers, developers, and any other related organization. Encourage partnerships between current and new affordable housing developers for mentoring and technical training. Establish partnerships with major employers to coordinate the supply of workforce housing. Encourage and support joint development opportunities between the private sector and nonprofits to develop affordable housing. Engage lenders and trainers in ongoing discussion with the city relative to underwriting and credit standards, technology solutions, as well as the development of financial products in an effort to maximize the financing options available to potential first-time homebuyers through conventional and other lenders. Coordinate with Pinellas County joint programs for the provision of affordable housing, including Pinellas County countywide housing strategy and Advantage Pinellas Housing Compact. Monitor and encourage citizens to lobby for the development of statewide legislative initiatives to gauge the local impact of their provisions. Coordinate with the private sector and nonprofits to provide homebuyer education, home warranties, and other strategies that reduce the ongoing maintenance risk of home ownership. Increase down payment assistant loan amounts to be viable for the home buyer while remaining financially feasible for the continued operation of the city's program. Improve the timing of housing quality standard inspections to facilitate closings on homes with down payment assistant loans if feasible under funding source requirements. And partner with the private sector and nonprofits to address third-party barriers to affordable housing and to identify appropriate incentives to reduce labor and material costs for developers and long-term maintenance, operational, and insurance costs for homeowners.
I don't know if it would fall in this partnership category or not, but having your local communities and your entitlement communities be consistent in their, particularly with down payment assistance, to be consistent in their internal qualification policies. I'm not talking about income qualifying, I'm talking about other standards that might be set by a local, is everybody gonna follow FHA standard guidelines? Are you gonna calculate real estate taxes in your DTI the same way, as the lenders do, and be more consistent and very similar in the program guidelines, your internal program guidelines. I don't know how to word that. You're probably really good at that, and just put it in there that all the partners think the same way on the same level. So you're not going to Largo and they're doing it one way, and you go to Clearwater and they do it another way, and the lender is going, well, which is the right way,
Yeah.
So this is really more a comment about regional cooperation and
Yes.
coordination between local.
Between the county
Mhm.
and Largo, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg, and the way that you handle the internal policies that you may have as a community. That I've learned that we don't necessarily approve because it's internal. It's a procedure policies and procedures, but.
So I will say that as part of those bullets, from last year's meetings to this year's meeting, the city did increase the down payment assistance loan amount to help home buyers for down payment assistance. The timing of the housing quality standards inspections is still a little iffy sometimes, but it's better than it was. And and I agree with Linda about, and it's something that has to be regional, that, speaking with some of the other municipalities that have down payment assistance and making sure that, or trying to make sure that guidelines all meet, because for those of us who do this, trying to figure out whether my debt-to-income ratio needs to be 43%, or can I go up to 48? Can I go up to 50? It's very different from city to city and from and to county. Don't get me wrong, I love the city's down payment assistance program. It works wonderfully. So It's one of the better ones in the county, let's put it that way.
All right, very good. Anything else on this one? Okay, all right. Okay, so we'll make some adjustments. I'm gonna come back with some draft adjustments to some of these, so, okay, for our next meeting. Which we're there, so, so our next meeting, yeah.
Somebody has a question.
Go ahead, yeah.
You need to come up to the.
Donnie Perez. So from what you and Linda were saying, we have been collaborating. We've actually having meetings, I believe it's what, monthly, Terry? With the county, Largo, St. Pete, and Pinellas Park, and Clearwater. And we've been talking, we've been working together on aligning the down payment assistance and other programs together. But it's not gonna be 100% aligned, but we're getting it as close as possible as we can.
And really where it's coming from is one of the other municipalities really changed theirs to the detriment of buyers. You guys, like I said, we have a great program here in Clearwater, but one of the other municipalities changed their guidelines to the detriment of the buyers.
And Terry Matheson. We also made sure that once we get a file, we order the inspection right away. So if you see where that's not being done, you need to because we do have partners that process the files for us. So in the event that that's not happening, you need to let us know so that we can address that
Now,
immediately.
I will say that unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of transactions within the city limits of Clearwater. I've had in the county and in one of the other cities, but I have not had a lot in Clearwater this year.
Okay.
So,
And what Linda said about putting the information into the community, we had a program where I would go to the Clearwater libraries once per month. That has fell off, so probably something that Dylan probably can look at, where we have enough staff that can facilitate these meetings in the community to inform folks all the programs that are available.
Well, if you need volunteers,
And
I know where to reach you.
You also might want to coordinate with the Pinellas Housing Finance Authority, because I know they go to PRO, which is now it's not Greater Tampa, it's Tampa Bay Realtors, because everything merged. But they go to PRO, I think, once a quarter.
Okay.
And you may want to coordinate with Carmen at the Pinellas Housing Finance Authority and maybe, do something jointly.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Carmen and find out how often they go and who I need to contact at the former pro to get our information out there or to get on the list to provide information.
You could even do it at the same time Carmen does hers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll reach out to Carmen.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rob.
good idea.
All right, thank you. So before I jump to our next slide where we talk about the next meeting, is there anything else the committee wants to discuss today? We've looked at all the recommendations that were in the previous plan. Is there anything that you feel wasn't covered that would warrant an entirely new recommendation, or any final thoughts before we go to our next steps?
One thing that is this year has been unusual in that we've had so many hurricanes coming through and our disaster. There's no mention whatsoever in any of this communication about disaster relief.
Okay.
So I would like to address how we handle that as we move forward, not in hopes that we're going to have to use it, but it's so important right now because I understand the funding can be transferred to disaster, and some communities are stopping their DPA, stopping their rehab, and they're just concentrating on disaster. Well, that affects everything we've talked about, a lot of things that we've talked about today. So I'd like to have a meeting where we talk about how are we going to handle these disasters and where we are with it right now as far as the need. Has there a need assessment been done in the city, or how are we handling? Because I know there's been a lot of damage, a lot of flooding, and the city of Clearwater Sanitation Department's doing a super good job trying to get out and get all the debris cleaned up and everything. I can't speak more highly of all that they've done. Police and fire, and Governor DeSantis and his interest in keeping us safe as a community throughout the state. We really need to sit down and say, okay, how do we go? Where do we go? When do we go? Because I don't think I've seen anything in writing about how we handle disaster using state funds and federal funds for relief.
Yes, yeah, I was just gonna pull this up here. So, staff has been working extremely hard after the hurricanes during the middle of the 2 storms that came. And we do have a disaster relief program. We have paused our DPA, our rehab, and our residential development programs temporarily so that we can take the time to assess. We have coordinated with Pinellas County, St. Pete, Largo, on what they're doing, and we have slightly different programs, but they're mirrored in a lot of ways. Our program will roll out this week, and it's a backup option to if someone is denied from FEMA or their insurance company. But we will provide repairs necessary to avoid further damage, reimbursement for emergency supplies purchased after the first hurricane and 2 weeks, or I'm sorry, just before the first hurricane and 2 weeks after the last one. Payment of insurance deductibles up to $10,000. We actually have a application in already for that. It hasn't been processed yet because the program's not live, but it's already starting. Rental assistance to be used by displaced households, temporary off-site storage, inspections to do with life safety or to determine the scope of work. And then we kind of left it open for any other eligible activities that Florida Housing Finance Corporation, Florida Housing hands down to us. So we are, the most challenging thing that I've found after a storm is obtaining data. It takes a long time to get data points in, and so we do have the data from Helene. We're still waiting for the data, the completed data from Milton. We assume we'll have that here in the next week or two. That will allow us to start to turn back on some of the programs once we know how much funding we can dedicate to that program.
So when you say that you have suspended the rehab and the down payment assistance programs, for those people who may have been under contract to purchase a property and may have been in process, have a contract closing date, are they stopped?
So we have paused any unencumbered funds. So if they have a contract and a commitment letter from us, that is considered encumbered, and that will go forward.
Okay, so if they're in process with if they had been in process with one of your partners
Yes.
and had not yet come to you, although they were under contract, they may not be able to close on time?
I can't imagine a scenario where that would happen because they would generally come to us first to be pre-approved for the DPA program if they needed it for the financing. So I don't know. I guess it would be a case-by-case scenario at this point for that.
Okay.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll have the full data points here in the next week or two, and then we'll be able to determine the amount of funding that's going to go into our DR program, and then from there we'll be able to start turning some other programs back on. And we also, it was a mad dash, but we did submit our waivers, our guideline waivers to the state and federal government. The state did approve our waivers almost instantaneously, same day, and we are waiting on the federal waivers to be approved at this point.
Great.
So we're on track with all the rest of the jurisdictions, maybe even slightly ahead of some.
Good. Awesome.
So when will the program run out for assistance?
I'm sorry.
When are y'all planning on rolling out the program for the assistance?
So I mean, we're technically accepting applications right now. They haven't been started to be processed yet, but we just finished the guidelines on Friday, and then we're going live this week.
Okay. So where do people find that information about the program qualifications?
So the website's being built out as we speak. We're hoping, again, that will be live sometime this week. It will be a paper application to start, but we'll have a neighborly application live probably within the next 2 weeks or so.
Good job.
So when we get the data points, in a week or so, specific to affordable housing, will it have, because I've seen Pinellas County numbers, how many houses were destroyed, how many, were impacted, things like that. Will we have that for Clearwater so we know, was it any affordable housing community? Like, what was the impact specific to the city, specific to affordable housing? I'm curious to see how many were impacted, and against that, will that create like an uptick in need for all of these families that were displaced, if there were a lot, right? Will the data kind of give some sense of that?
The data will give us some sense of how many households we'll be able to assist. We did receive a waiver from the state on home value. However, it is still going to be restricted to 120% AMI. So, with Helene, a lot of that damage was flood damage on the beach. I don't know how many residents will be able to help on the beach. I mean, obviously they're welcome to apply, but they'd still have to meet that income criteria. With Milton, it may be a different case, and we're really waiting on those damage assessments to determine, what the case is there.
Will that be part of the data that you guys are collecting, or is that going to take longer?
So we get for Helene, we got the raw data, so house by house, and then we sorted that for Homestead, and then down to the area. We looked into opportunity zones and those kinds of things to determine how many households. I think we narrowed it down to 21 households for Helene, and with Milton, I would assume it's going to be more. But again, we're still waiting on that data, so it's hard to know for sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Any other topics before we move on? Okay, all right. So our next meeting is November 12th. It's going to be right here and at 9 a.m. Hopefully we don't have another hurricane between now and then. Yeah, I don't think so, but hopefully not. With that, between now and then, because we've had so much time passed, please review this handout that you had today. Again, it was in your agenda packet if you like to look at things electronically on the computer screen. But I also provided you a handout today. This is really a summary of the current city practices of what's being done. It's components of the larger LHIS report that have been updated to current. So this summary will go in the actual LHIS report. But it's a good background for each of these recommendations. It's organized by incentive area, and will give you some more information about what the city's currently doing. Again, the brochure exists, so if you see that in there, that's information that we were not aware of, but we're happy that brochure has been developed, so that has been updated in terms of that particular recommendation. So with that, I don't have anything else today. I think I'll turn it back over to the chair to continue the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone from the public, would anyone from the public like to speak to this item that we just discussed? If so, please step to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Seeing none, Ms. Call, do we have any comments submitted by email? I will now close the public comment period. Item 4, citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak on items not on today's agenda? If so, please step to the podium, state your name and spell your last name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak on a subject that is not on today's agenda. Seeing no one come forward, Ms. Call, have we received any public comments? I will now close the public comment period, and I'd like to ask if there are any final comments from committee members.
Just thank you, guys.
Lastly, I'd like to ask Dylan Mayu if he has anything additional to report to the committee.
Just that I appreciate the members that were able to show up today. I know that it was kind of somewhat last minute when compared to the other meetings, so I appreciate you be able to accommodate this rescheduled meeting.
Our next AHAC meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 12th at 9 a.m. in these chambers. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.